Hi there. We've been totally inundated with social media conspiracy theories flying right, left, and center, and it has become exhausting trying to sort the truth from lies. In this video, I want to give you some tools to help you sort through all the social media posts blasting us from all sides. I also want to recommend a great documentary called The Social Dilemma on Netflix. And this documentary explains, using the founders and technology creators of the various social media platforms, how Facebook and other similar platforms are geared to use their AI algorithms to give you more and more biased information in order to generate advertising revenue. Unfortunately, truth is what gets left behind in this circumstance. My background is in engineering physics. I have a master's degree and PhD in electrical and computer engineering. At the age of 27, I became an associate professor at the University of Waterloo, and at the age of 37, became a full professor. I have researched and published in the area of robotics, haptics, smart materials, virtual surgical simulators, control theory, virtual reality simulators, as well as their applications. I have a solid publication record, having published over 150 papers over the last 30 years. As I am nearing retirement, I have slowed down a bit, but my career numbers are solid. I know what it takes to publish papers that become the groundwork of other people's research, and how to advance human knowledge, particularly since I have made contributions in several different research areas where I've had to start from scratch. I want to give you some tools, therefore, based on my experience, on how to separate fake information from real information, particularly with respect to science, which is especially relevant given the current pandemic and the fears generated from our current crisis. Now, picture yourself being sent to a link or a video. It talks about the coronavirus being a hoax and is being used to control you. It's very slickly produced and seems very authoritative. How do you know if it's legit? After all, conspiracy theories always contain a kernel of truth in order to mislead, and some conspiracy theories do actually turn out to be true in the end. News media is biased, whether you're a CNN or Fox News follower. Now that we are firmly in the grips of a pandemic, we need to be even more careful that we don't fall into a rabbit hole and get trapped in it forever. I've seen families and friendships torn apart over fear and fake news. Well, we actually live in the information age, and we have tools that can help us sort information and get to the truth of the matter. Maybe not always, but more often than not. Google Scholar is one of the best tools for this, and I'll be using this tool to help us sort fact from fiction. Okay, so now Google Scholar, you can just type Google Scholar, and there you go, Google Scholar. Now, Google Scholar's been around since 2004, and basically you can research almost every single research paper written in English on the site. In fact, I can type my father's name and his co-author, and I'll just write the university, and I can actually pull up the paper that he wrote back in 1972 in Nature magazine. And in fact, if I click on it, I can actually pull down the actual article. So basically, you can type in any topic area and immediately see the journal publications associated with that. Now, why is a journal publication important? Well, it means that it has been peer reviewed. To publish in a journal like Nature means that when the researcher submits this, it is then sent out to probably 3 to 7 world experts in that field to scrutinize the work. We call them reviewers. These reviewers then give the authors feedback to improve their paper. Only after the reviewers agree that the paper is solid research and worthy of publication does it ever get published. Now, suppose we want a paper on how the new Pfizer vaccine was tested and how safe it is. So let's type in the words safety, effectiveness, COVID vaccine, and Pfizer. And here we go. Here's a paper called Safety and Efficacy of the BNT162b2 mRNA COVID-19 Vaccine. In fact, I can click on it and the paper appears. Now, it's really important to note that this was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and the publication appeared quite recently, in December 31st of last year. Now, how do you know if this is good quality research? Well, there's 3 things you can check. First of all, you can check the author and see if he's a legitimate author. So the way you do this is in the following way. You can see that the author here is highlighted. I can click on him. I can also do this from the search bar. and you can see his name. Now, you can see all the papers this person has written and how many times they've been cited. In other words, how many other research papers have used this research papers. 798, 509, these are very impressive numbers. You also want to check that this person is not a one-hit wonder. So for example, there's a thing called the H index. This number tells me that he has 40 papers that have at least been cited by 40 other research papers. That's an impressive amount. Any number here past 15 to 20 would indicate that that researcher has some credibility. When you get up into the 40s, this researcher is very, very solid. So whenever you see a research paper, this is one way to check to see that the authors have the relevant background. Now, you should also check the journal that the paper appears in. So in this particular case, we know that this is appearing in the New England Journal of Medicine. So how do we know if that's a good journal? Well, what you can do now is if you go back to the front page of Google Scholar, if you click here on the top left, you'll see that you can pull down metrics. And in metrics, well, it comes out right away. Nature magazine is one of the highest regarded magazines. And the next is the New England Journal of Medicine. So that gives you confidence that that is a solid scientific journal. Now, if you're looking for some other areas, you can actually zone down. So if you want to go into, say, robotics, I can go there and then look at another subcategory, robotics. And this tells me the best journals in the area. The H5 indices, it tells me that, for example, in the last 5 years, that's what the 5 stands for, the average paper in this journal has 94 publications that have been cited at least 94 times. So that's really solid. And in this area, these are the type of numbers you would expect. The New England Journal of Medicine has 365, which is extraordinarily high. And so you can trust what's appearing in there. Finally, you should check the citation index of the paper, and that's this number here. So this paper has been cited already 295 times. So that means 295 researchers have used this paper in their work. They would only do that if it was considered to be a very, very good paper. And this was only released, remember, in December 31st of 2020, only about 4 weeks ago, and it's already garnered this many citations. It's extraordinary, and this gives you a lot of confidence that this is a very solid, credible piece of work. Note that we didn't have to go to a video or some meme or some blog for our information. Now, some people are quite intimidated by the language and science in these articles. However, to get the gist of the paper, you can read the abstract, which summarizes the whole paper. So here, you can read the abstract, which tells you that this describes the SARS virus and then talks about the experiment and the results. So it summarizes it. And if you can even go drop into the conclusions of the abstract, a 2-dose regimen of this vaccine confers 95% protection against COVID-19 in persons 16 years of age or older. And it talks about the safety as well. You can also flip in the paper. Probably the easiest things to read are the introduction. So you can read this introduction to get an idea of the paper. And then you can flip right to the bottom of the paper if you want. And usually in the conclusions of discussion, they try and summarize everything in easy to understand terminology. So let's just quickly look at this paper and I'll show you how it's not that hard to understand. So this paper, basically, they're talking about an ongoing multinational placebo-controlled observer-blinded efficacy trial. In other words, they're trying to see whether or not this is very, very effective. And they give 2 doses 21 days apart. So they had a total of 43,548 participants, half which received the vaccine and half which just got a placebo. In other words, they received nothing. In the case where they had the vaccine, there were 8 cases of COVID. And in the case where they were not given the vaccine but were given a placebo, there's 162 cases. So they did this randomized testing, and if you were given the vaccine, basically if you look at the ratio between 8 and 162, the vaccine was 95% effective. Now, in terms of the safety, you can look down a little bit further in the article, and it talks about the safety aspects. And here it gets a little bit more complicated because they talk about the statistical analysis, but the results are quite easy to understand. Here, if you look at safety, you can go down a little bit further and you can look at adverse effects, which is what a lot of people are quite interested in. 2 people who got the vaccine died, but you notice they died shortly after the vaccine, but these are the causes of death. In fact, there were more on the placebo that died, and that's just due to random choice. 4 placebo recipients died, 2 from unknown causes, 1 from a stroke, and 1 from myocardial infarction. And none of the deaths were considered by the investigators to be related to the vaccine. So out of 43,000 participants, there were no deaths that they could attribute to the vaccine. Of course, they're going to monitor the safety continually for the next 2 years. So as you can see, this is not very hard to understand, and there's no reason why people should not be checking the papers for which these results come from. So when people are saying that the vaccine's not safe or it's not effective, you should look at this paper and then correct them, because the science is there. Now, you might need to reach out in order to get copies of the paper that you see here. I'm able to remote log into my university to access the paper. Although you will be able to see all the information about the paper, like the journal, the authors, and maybe a brief abstract, you may hit a page that asks you to pay for a PDF copy of the paper. You don't have to do that. First, if you know anyone who's in college or university or someone who works there, you can ask them to download a copy of the paper for you, as they will have access to the papers from these libraries just as I do. The second thing you can do is check with your local library. Sometimes they will have access to these journals and they can get it for you. Last, you can always email or contact the authors. If their contact info isn't on the paper, you should be able to Google their contact information. Email the authors and ask them for a copy of the paper. If you don't get a reply, try one of the other authors or email again. In my career, I don't recall ever having an author refuse to send me a paper. Give it a try. I hope you find this video useful, and I hope you use Google Scholar now to fact check everything. It's so easy to use. In the upcoming videos, I'm going to be using Google Scholar as a tool to debunk some of the blogs and videos that are floating around in social media. Stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed this video. The instrumental that was playing in the background is called Scandal, off of my Grasping for Hope in the Darkness album. I thought it would be fitting for a series where I'm actually trying to prevent people from spreading fake information and, well, creating scandal. Check out the actual YouTube music video by clicking the button at the bottom left at the end of this video or below. Please hit the subscribe button, which you'll see in the bottom right at the end of the video. For more content like this, go to www.criticalmassmusic.org, where you can find links to follow my music on Spotify, follow us on Facebook, or join our subscriber base for Life Hacks with Critical Mass, where you can hear advanced music clips, special concerts, and more videos on how to live your life and live it abundantly. Thanks to all our sponsors who have made this video possible. God bless.
So deep, but all I could do was weep, and before